Since we're a few minutes behind, I will call the meeting to order here at 2:05. Transportation Advisory Committee. Just so everyone knows, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted online by Minuteman Media Network. Before we start with the agenda, I did want to introduce Erin Stevens, or have Erin Stevens introduce herself. For those who don't know her, Erin will be providing some support for us on the committee. So Erin, if you want to say a few words.
Sure. So I'm the town's public information and communications manager. I have an interest in planning and all things town related, but Kate and Stephen were gracious enough to let me help out here so I can get a little bit more experience. So I'm excited to see how things work.
Great. I don't know how gracious it is sticking you with yet another assignment, but we can call it graciousness. Sure, I'm down with that.
For now.
I'll take the compliment. We're wonderful.
Yeah. So let's get started. Has everybody reviewed the committee charge? And would it be helpful for me to share my screen with it, or do people have it in front of them?
It would be great if you could share it.
Okay, so why don't I do that? So, and actually, Jane, I know, is here. And so, Jane, if you wanted to talk about the genesis of this committee and some of the effort and thought that went into the committee charge, and then we can scroll down and kind of get to the roles and responsibilities. But if you wanted to kind of take us through the background, that would be great.
Sure. I'm sparing everybody the fact that I am fresh off of a bike ride, so hence my darkened screen. But the genesis of the Transportation Committee came out of the long-range plans, both recommendations and the clear overarching, I won't say disconnect, but the many tendrils that transportation hit across both town departments and town interests, as well as town needs. We've chipped away at transportation issues through Crosstown Connect, through the incredible work on the Bruce Fruman Rail Trail, through various initiatives in town, through efforts in our own select board goals to increase transportation from other towns into Concord to help with both the transportation needs of employees as well as others who come into Concord. And then we'd also add the transportation needs of our growing, well, once upon a time, growing tourist demand, and hopefully once again, greater tourist interests. And I think, you know, there's been a lot of headway made by the planning department under Marcia's auspices. And then there's also been the traffic advisory, the traffic committee of the town managers, you know, of the internal town staff that has handled many of the issues that were either unseen or somehow miraculously dealt with for the residents of Concord. And so one of the goals of the transportation committee was to somehow link all of these things together in a way that also allowed the expertise that we have on town staff to, you know, to really help us all think through what we want to move forward towards, that would link both our sustainability goals as well as our, you know, the growing interests and demands of Concord residents and the changes in this town. So that would be sort of the overarching piece. In one of the things that Stephen's brought to this, and I'll let Stephen talk about this, is his own longstanding interest and expertise in transportation matters. So that's sort of where the handoff has happened, and Stephen and I have been working with each other to try and find, to create a hybrid, which we really haven't done before, and that's what sort of brought us to this point. That is
Yeah, I think that
cover the
that's,
issues.
I think that at least that covers it for me. So in terms of the background, and when Jane says we want to create a hybrid, we don't mean gas and electric. We mean a hybrid of making sure that the work that goes into traffic management, and I think I've said this before, where literally the rubber hits the road, maintains a connection with a broader transportation policy discussion and discussion of transportation and, modality goals and sustainability goals. And so, in my experience, where both tend to fall short from time to time is that connection isn't maintained. And so this Transportation Advisory Group is an attempt to be a bridge in between those two subject areas. And so, or to say that a little differently, to create a cycle where traffic management decisions are informed by broader policy goals, and broader policy goals are informed by traffic management decisions. So, like I said, hopefully it'll improve both is the goal, but it isn't typically done this way. And so we're trying it, and like I said, I hope it will work. And the primary goal, of course, of our charge, and now we're getting into the formation of it, so the primary duties and responsibilities are to analyze the goals and report to town manager and select board with specific recommendations that can be implemented to support the goals, and then report progress with a draft report to select board in November 2020 and annually thereafter. Obviously, COVID-19 has played a role in that November 2020 deadline, so I think that's something that we could probably highlight that needs to maybe be modified, which we can do. I don't want to speak for the select board, but I am confident that based on my next meeting at 3 o'clock, the capital planning task force, that deadline could be extended by request of the select board. So this is all of you know who you are, but this is the public, this is the membership. So you can see there are some multiple names in here as I was going through and kind of typing them in to say who should we appoint both internally and for town residents. We haven't officially elected a chair. I did not put that on the agenda, but maybe for the next meeting we can do that. So if we want to do that, I can continue to chair for the time being, or we can put it on the agenda. I don't know if there's a sense of what the committee wants to do, but we can put that on the next agenda and discuss that. And then, so at the select board suggests the formation of this committee, and as a committee town manager to, like I said, review existing plans, especially envision Concord's Bridge to 2030's local transportation goals, and assess the transportation concerns and ideas identified by existing town committees, explore and recommend innovative approaches and revenue sources for both new ways of local mobility, as well as maintaining and enhancing the existing infrastructure, such as state, regional, and federal funds, public-private partnerships, grants, etc. Explore multimodal transportation options within and through Concord. Balance the opportunities for transportation throughout Concord with our goals for environmental sustainability, stewardship of town historic and cultural resources, support for economic vitality, and the needs of a population of diverse incomes and ages, including public and private school communities. And then make recommendations as to how the town can enhance local transportation actions with existing resources, explore ways to benefit from neighboring communities, regional and state efforts to achieve similar goals, and develop a public education and input process. So I guess I would open up to the floor for people. I'm going to stop sharing. If people are okay, I can reshare if needed, but I'm going to stop sharing and open it up to the floor for any comments or questions about the charge from committee members. everybody, I think, is mute, started off on mute. So if you have a question, you may need to unmute yourself if you have a question.
I have a question. So where do we start? I know that many of us are working on different initiatives, and it may be really valuable to hear from each person the types of transportation issues that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. Or do you have another starting point that you'd like to put forward?
I think that as a group, we can, kind of lay out a work plan for ourselves. That's kind of part of what this agenda item and the next are for. This is our second meeting ever. So, and as the charge notes, we've got a lot of work to do ahead of us. And so I view this as very much an ongoing process. So I think as a group, we can kind of look at what our assignments are and how best schedule them and attack them and schedule future agendas with decide what items we want to populate future agendas with. Any other comments or questions?
Sorry for running a little late.
Not a problem. Okay, so going back to the agenda. All right, so at this point, we wanted to have a continue our discussion from the last meeting about Sudbury Road. And I guess I would ask Steve Dukrin if he has any, I know that he's been taking a look at the intersection and I know Kevin is here as well from the police department. And I think at our last meeting, we said that we were going to look at what our options are and bring them back to the committee. I will tell you that this will be presented at the select board on Tuesday the 13th as well. So this is kind of a sneak preview, if you will, of what will be presented Tuesday night. So I guess Steve, if you wanted to, or Kevin, if you wanted to talk briefly about what we have.
I have a preliminary plan that I'd like to discuss. If Kevin has any comments before we go into that. No? All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So the last time we met, we talked about a problem over here at this intersection, Sudbury Road, with those three other streets. And the big issue was the side distance for if a pedestrian was standing over here at this corner near this catch basin, all the total side distance for a vehicle approaching from the south is about 200 feet. We know, we have measured that the average traveling speed is about 40 miles an hour. So the required side distance is 305 feet. The big obstruction here is this curve here. The embankment is high and steep. It's wooded. And you'd say, well, let's get rid of that. That's not easy. You're talking about a significant retaining wall and entering private property. So to achieve the side distance or preliminary plan, we're showing the two ways combined to achieve the side distance. First, we like to bump out this corner to put a pedestrian, make a pedestrian more visible to the approaching vehicle. So where we drew this crosswalk here, this is about where you would see a pedestrian starting the crosswalk. In addition to that, we would want to widen this southern approach on the east side of the street. So this darkened area, as well as this one, that's the widening, which will push the vehicle toward the east. And now you have a better sight line between the vehicle driver and the pedestrian up here. And this profile down here at the bottom shows that So here's the vehicle, and now you're just clearing the embankment. Additionally, we'll have to do some brush clearing that's, for overgrown brush in this area, which we actually have done, and Aaron can confirm that. So the design shows that we will add these rapid flashing beacons. These, you've seen them. They flash very rapidly, and they can be seen about 1,000 feet during daytime in a straight line. Nighttime is even better. Obviously, with this embankment here in this direction, they'll probably just be seen that 300 plus feet when this work is done. I show them here as solar powered. We are working through that. We don't think there's enough solar capture there to keep these powered all the time. So we're talking about a direct connect to the power source. That's very involved. You'll have to get electrical conduits. You have to meter the power to these as well. So it's very involved, and there's cost to it. Now I want to make sure that people understand what these are. Some people out there are misled to believe that these are signals. These are not regulated. They are approved by the federal MUTCD, but they're not regulated. So they're just warning signals, warning signs. They tell the vehicle, because they are activated by the presence of a person or actuated by a person, they tell the vehicle to slow down. There is something happening here. That doesn't mean that the vehicle has to slow down or stop. So safe crossing will only be initiated after the vehicle stops. So people have to understand what these are meant to do. We are discussing about doing advanced signing. Naturally, we would put in some signs saying crosswalk ahead. But in this case, in this approach, a sudden approach, we are contemplating whether we want to have another flashing signal there that will go on simultaneous with someone activating the pedestrian crossing. That's involved, that's costly. These have to be communicated, and they'll have to be, this other one will have to be powered as well. So, but we're still discussing how that can be done. Some additional work that has to be done to achieve this design. We want to put safe landings, so construct curb and sidewalk in this area. In this corner, you want the pedestrian to walk around this corner safely, so we'll extend the sidewalk so that we should clear the corner. On the other side, it will be a simple landing. And let's see what else. Striping. We will stripe the lanes at a reduced width. We're looking at 10-foot lanes in each direction. That will add some traffic calming. People tend to slow down with narrow lanes. Not everybody does, but we expect to achieve some level of speed decrease in this area with reduced lane widths. That's about what we're doing with design. We want to bring this to a final form if this is what is accepted as the proposed work that needs to be done. We did an estimate, a preliminary estimate on this runs about $70,000 without the advanced flashing signal. We have in a grant, the completion of this grant, only 20, so we have to look for the extra funding. But this is what we would like to advance as a design, unless others have better ideas. And we can talk about the schedule. It will be a few iterations as we go forward. We want to look at, maybe we can put a little retaining wall on this side to cut into the embankment and reduce the widening. We've got to look at how we balance that cost. So there are a few iterations. We've got to look at the impacts to all of this work, to any properties, to slope work, to utilities. This catch basin here, as you can see, will be blocked, so the catch basin have to be brought in front of the curb. So there's drainage work that we'll have to examine the condition of the existing drainage. That can get, if it's in a good condition, that can be costly. You have to replace it all. But there's a considerable amount of work left to do, and we plan to continue to work on this in the coming weeks, coming months. Any questions on this?
Yeah, and I would invite, I know there's members from the neighborhood here, so you're welcome. Welcome to ask questions, sure.
Steve?
Just announce your name and address.
Yeah. Steve Ledoux, 89 Heathsbridge Road. I think, as far as I know, we have one other member of the neighborhood here, and he's way more intimately involved with this because he helps kids cross there every day. But I really do like this design, and I do like the way you're going to try to narrow and slow down the traffic. You know, I think this solves a lot of our issues, I guess. The question I would have, one question would be, obviously, as Steve just pointed out, you need probably at least $50,000 more. You talking about a town meeting appropriation? When would you foresee this type of construction starting?
Well, I can address, I'll defer to Steve on the construction starting timeline. As you know, we're running into winter, and we usually don't do road construction in the winter.
Right.
From a budgetary standpoint, we do have a roads program that we actually did reduce for FY21 by I think a few $100,000 because of the impacts of COVID-19 in our reduced FY21 budget that was approved in September. But it does have funds in it that we could that this would be eligible for. It just would have an impact on projects elsewhere in town, resurfacing, things like that.
Right.
But we could look to that as a funding source, so we would not need to wait necessarily for another town meeting.
Okay. And the other question I have is, and as you're probably aware, the neighborhood has put in a petition to the selectmen asking for some consideration on interim measures while this is being planned and while before construction. So I one of the things is in my own observation, since I run this road every day and I basically run down Sudbury Road to 9 Acre Corner, as crazy as that might sound, is I think I very rarely see any police presence down this stretch of the road. They're usually up north of the river, and there, in my opinion, there's a lot of people that are driving very quickly. And what scares me about anybody crossing here, even with these lights, is the fact that every day about 8:30 when I'm running, there are at least 3 big cement trucks just roaring up this road from probably Sudbury to Hudson. And it'd be nice in interim, in my mind, if we had some of those speed boards that flash people's speed limits and stuff, just to make them conscious about the safety issues on the road. I'm not necessarily the spokesperson for the neighborhood, but I think some interim measures while we're planning on this would be really appreciated.
So we are, Steve, as well as the police department, are evaluating the suggested interim measures, and we'll be reporting on that Tuesday to the board. And so, I'll share with you that the signboard thing, most of those are solar, and if you're there every day, the canopy doesn't really provide enough solar energy to keep those boards charged. The trouble is that if you have them close to the intersection, the concern is people are looking at the flashing number instead of who may be on the road. And so we're concerned about that. But they're preparing a pretty detailed report on those interim measures. And I confess I haven't seen it yet, but it'll be presented on Tuesday.
Right, but also, the speed boards, we could do a little pre-warning somewhere like where Ornac comes in, because there's a farm field right across from Ornac with no tree obstruction whatsoever. So that might be a place to place the signs. Whatever.
Like I said, we're looking at it. Thanks.
Okay.
William McElwain, 316 Heathsbridge. and I'm the dad who's been out there most days. It's been an interesting experience. I certainly have greater appreciation both for the danger, but also, kind of what's at least been working out there, somewhat taking our own lives at risk to do it. But, I don't have much comment on like where I will say that what we found works is that the kids, I stop the kids, or a parent stops the kids at the intersection. This is when they're coming back from school at 7 Star Lane on the proper side of the road for a bicycle, the right side of the road. And as the sort of person who steps into the road or waits and, basically use our size to wait until people notice the kids or us and stop, that I end up standing actually where you do have the exit to the, on the crosswalk, on the Oxbow side. And that, and in the mornings heading over, the kids would be following essentially, where you've got the crossing drawn there. But coming back, it just from a feel standpoint, it feels a lot safer on the other side, at least currently. And when you have the system in, maybe that improves it. Does this, you mentioned about advanced warning. And when I think of that, I mean something, that is 200 down, 200 feet down in either direction, flashing so that people do get a warning before they'd actually see people in the road. Is that part of this, or is that not part of this? Or is that that extra cost that you mentioned?
So typically you just put some signs, some warning signs saying crosswalk ahead or crossing ahead. And you want to do it, in advance of the 300 feet in each direction, giving people enough time to react to that sign. Here we are contemplating in the southern approach, before you hit that corner, you use a flashing light similar to what's on this, on the system that we have here, that will coordinate through some kind of a signaling. So that when the flashing signs go on here, that advanced light will go on as well.
Okay, so just because I don't see what's happening down Sudbury Road towards town, and if I see where your cursor is, could you just point with your cursor where traffic approaching from Beryl and 9 Acre Corner, where that signal would be? Okay.
We would have to find a location.
I'm just looking for, and so when, so someone enters the crosswalk or pushes a button, you get the flashing there at that crosswalk, and you get flashing downstream in either direction, so that there, so there's like a light on the warning that's, going ding, 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 kind of. Is that inaccurate? Is that how that plays?
At this point in time, we are just thinking about this approach, the southern approach. These things come with a big, a large cost. We don't think it's necessary in the approach from the north, from town side.
Okay, well, I will say, so not this past week, but the week before, there were a couple of days that were some pretty scary stuff that happened. One, Steve mentioned the cement trucks, which do book down that road, and they book, and when they're coming from Ornac, they seem heavily laden. And one, I had 2 girls held at the right side of Oxbow Lane, sort of with my hand so that they weren't going. And, someone stopped abruptly, not that abruptly, but that, that cement truck was barreling on down, and, he leaned on his horn heavy and ended up in oncoming traffic. Thankfully, at the moment, there was no oncoming traffic to actually hit him. So that's in that direction. I've had similar situations where people coming down Sudbury Road from town, noticed there was a dad and his son, standing at the corner of 7 Star Lane, not in the road because they were waiting till it was safe. But that person driving sees them hit the brakes. That one hit the brakes pretty hard, and a Volvo ended up in the oncoming traffic coming the other way. So I think you do have some issues going down the other direction. I do think it is a lesser issue. The other thing to point out.
Let me answer that one right now. Why we don't think it's necessary, but we will look into it further. Today, if you're standing over here, you see this line here? That's the pavement. You're probably standing back here, and you're way back, so you don't have a clear line of sight for a vehicle that's far away. But with this bump out, you now have a straighter shot. And I said earlier.
Is that okay? Okay, that's a bump out. So that's actually coming into the road a little bit.
Yes, your rounding is.
Got it.
Okay. And now I said earlier that the flashing beacon can be seen at 1,000 feet in daytime.
Yeah.
So now, that's enough of a distance for a vehicle to react to something happening.
I see. So they sort of see the flashing kind of, even though they may not have line of sight on it, just because of the power of the luminescence of the light.
Yes, and the speed at which it blinks, it really gets your attention.
Okay. Okay, well, that actually does address there's another issue which I've noticed, which is people coming on Sudbury Road from town. They take, they're booking along, they take that turn into 7 Star Lane, sometimes pretty fast. And I would say 90% of the time are in the middle or more than the middle of the road into oncoming. So I would urge you to consider something to, I don't know what you say on on this. If they're taking if they're making that right-hand turn, they really got to slow down into it. And maybe this bump out is going to encourage that slowdown, but it also, so now I've got kids coming down 7 Star Lane and they want to get on this little bump out, sidewalk part, and, someone's booking down Sudbury Road, takes a right, and, there's no flashing or anything going on, but I'm just saying that, so you do have another issue there.
Okay, so this does help what we did here. So look again, the existing line is back here, follow my cursor.
Yeah.
And there's the catch basin.
Yeah.
With this bump out, you have a smaller radius, a tighter radius. So naturally a vehicle has to slow down to make that turn.
Well, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
I think my point is simply that, people, when they make that turn, when I wish I could, where it says UPL, just to the left of Sudbury Road. I don't know what UPL stands for, but if someone's there and they're making that turn, will they be able to see the people there? I mean, I will say, by the way, that the cutting down of the brush has helped in this regard a little bit, but nonetheless, it's still, people coming in there right now, and it's a little scary, and it's been sort of lucky.
Bill, we understand. I think that there's some of this that we can fix, and some that really can't be. I mean, we're like widening 7 Star Lane. Really, I don't think that's going to be, in the cards for this, at least for this phase of the project. So I guess I understand your point. I always would ask if anybody else has any questions or comments on this.
So this is Josh Burgle, 39 East Circle. Thank you so much for this presentation. Thank you for cutting down the brush in both directions. It has really helped. Bill's points about speed coming off of Sudbury onto 7 Star will probably be addressed by that bump out. So that's a really fabulous solution. The one piece that I don't think is necessarily addressed is the fact that 7 Star is one way in and doesn't allow an outlet from 7 Star out of Sudbury. And so maybe a suggestion, and this is just a suggestion, is to create sort of a bump out on the south side of 7 Star to allow for those pedestrians who are walking towards Sudbury on 7 Star to have a place to then cross as a refuge and then to cross 7 Star. It would also narrow the lane and have a physical barrier to the outlet from 7 Star. So it's just a suggestion. Obviously, it's a little bit more work, but I think that might help address slowing down traffic going into 7 Star Lane as well.
If the only thing I can see on
a
this
little bit
plan,
safer.
yeah, the only thing I can see is on this plan, Josh. I don't think we have the right of way to do it.
So I'm not saying make the 7 Star wider. I'm just.
Oh no, I'm saying even to have you'd have to cut back the retaining wall, and then I think you'd have trouble with being able to put that in the right of way. I don't know, Steve. I don't know if that line your cursor's on is the right edge of right of way, then there's no room for it.
This is the right of way, this line here,
Yeah.
the straight line at the corner there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this here is it. The other line is the edge of pavement.
I mean, people who are coming down 7 Star Lane just need to make a point of crossing over to that, once this is done, of crossing over to that side where the bump out is earlier, and not put themselves in where they're up the road quite a bit. They don't cross there, cross on the other side of where that label ends.
I agree with you on that. I think then you probably have to extend the sidewalk a bit more. I mean, I don't have a good sense as to how deep that is, but to not have, if you want people to, I'm riding a bike. If I'm going to cross the road, I'm now, I'm potentially crossing into traffic. It's not really a safe move unless I know that I'm going to get onto, a sidewalk.
This is about 20 feet from here to there, about 20 feet.
Well,
I'd like to make a comment. 7 Stars one way coming off Sudbury. You've got a curve in the pavement as you look at 7 Star on the left side. That really doesn't need to be there, does it? Because I don't know how many people are turning left coming up Sudbury Road to 7 Star. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do it. Maybe you could just make no left turn there and
Wait, I'm sorry.
put that bump out into what's already pavement. Follow me?
I'm not sure there is a catch
Are you
basin.
crossing from 7 Star, or are you crossing from Garfield onto 7 Star?
Well, we're talking about make that coming up the right side of 7 Star towards Sudbury Road as a pedestrian, a landing spot, and a refuge as you prefer to it. So the way the road curves right now on that side, which is obviously right up against the right of way, does the road need to be that wide there? And would it even slow traffic coming onto 7 Star a little more if you put that refuge, most of it would be in what's already pavement prior to Sudbury, and you got some room on Sudbury Road to curve it.
Yeah, I can answer this. Whatever you do here will not be dictated by this turn. This turn will be pretty easy regardless. It'll be dictated by this turn. So this bump out here that's been requested, we'll have to check for an emergency vehicle try to get in there and staying in the lane. So we can look at to see how feasible that is.
That's all I'm asking. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
There's a catch basin there, and as I discussed earlier, drainage can get very complicated. So this catch basin will have to be redone, reconfigured, moved out, and we haven't looked at that yet.
Well, the other thing is you can't see here the slope there. It pretty much slopes right down to the edge of the roadbed.
Yeah.
I don't know how much flat ground there is there in the field, whereas it looks flat on the plan.
Yeah.
But I think there's quite a slope at the edge of that road.
Yeah, I'm suggesting even striping might work, like you have in the middle of the road there on Sudbury. So just something simple to help,
If we
visually narrow the lane down.
If we feel it'll enhance safety, we'll take a look at that. But if it creates a false sense of safety like we've talked about, then we wouldn't.
Yep, of course not. Yep. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments about the plan?
I have a couple of
Yes,
go ahead, sorry.
Karen Belinky, 39 Holden Lane, also in the neighborhood. And I've gone out a couple of times, not as many times as Bill, obviously, who's taken a lot of the work on getting kids across. But one point I would like to suggest has to do with the cars coming the wrong way on 7 Star Lane. It's supposed to be one way. People ignore it completely, and the signing is not such that it would really discourage people from doing that. And I think you could improve that signage so we don't have traffic coming the wrong way out of there as well.
Yeah, I would, my observation is that when I'm there are at least 2 or 3 people in a 15 to 20 minute period in the morning and in the afternoon that are making wrong turns out of there. A lot of delivery guys, because they pull in and they don't see the no exit sign that is at the beginning of 7 Star when you get off of Ornac.
Yeah. Do you have your backpack?
Hopefully the brush clearing has helped that, but we can look at that sign as well. I'll share that I may or may not have done the same thing my first time up there, not being aware that it was no exit onto Sudbury Road. And I'm not confessing to everything, especially with the police on the call here. But you're right. It is not as self-evident as it could be, and that's something that we'll look at as a part of this project as well.
Thank you.
Can you, Stephen, clarify a couple of things you said? When you talk about the lights at the crosswalk being visible for 1,000 feet, is that in this very space you can see them from 1,000 feet down the road in either direction?
In this case, I'm not sure if we have the 1,000 feet straightaway on the north side, but we don't have it on the south side.
Mhm.
So
But the one on the,
when this is done, this one could be seen for quite a ways because they were gone at the same time. They both were gone at the same time. So this one will be visible by a vehicle even further south.
okay.
But this particular one would not be. I couldn't
do
tell
they
you now. Go ahead.
Do they clear the berm in the road that we see in the diagram below?
All right. So this, you're referring to this bump here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This represents this line,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the flashing beacon is, I forgot what the height is, but it will clear it better than you're seeing right here. This sight line for a vehicle is looking at an object 2.4 feet from the roadway. Obviously, the flashing beacon is much higher, so it can be seen further away. But the good thing about this system is that you don't have to rely on a car seeing this flashing light. It can see this one before and further away. Yeah.
And when you were talking about the cost, did you say $70,000 excluding the signage? The electronic signage?
That doesn't include the advanced flashing light.
Down the
That
road?
includes down the road, yeah.
Okay, but it includes the flashing light at the crosswalk?
It includes these two, yes.
Okay. And I would assume it's fairly costly to do anything about that bump in the road there. To level
This one?
up. No, the one down what is it, 193 feet
The profile, yeah.
in front of the car?
This.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're talking about a significant retaining wall. You're talking about going up this embankment, a lot of trees, and you're into private property.
Mm. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Steve, I don't know if not, I'll have Steve stop sharing his screen and we'll continue with the agenda.
I just want to just echo our appreciation on you guys giving this the attention, and look forward to seeing it come to reality.
Yeah, I just appreciate that. I just want to, reinforce that, the Complete Streets grant and the proposed solution, did not really see the same level of analysis and engineering as the plan you're seeing, which is the reason why what we believe to be the safest plan is the one Steve just presented, as opposed to what was funded in the grant. And so, we have an obligation to the town's people, but also to the town, in terms of public safety, to do what we believe to be the safest approach. And that's why we wanted to take a second look and knew, I think Steve Dukran told me he was there for 15 seconds before he realized that it was going to be a much more comprehensive and expensive project than initially conceived. So we know that the timeline isn't what was expected, but this is going to end up being a much better fix. And like I said, we are working on an analysis of the temporary solutions. Again, heading into wintertime, the availability and viability of temporary solutions, I think, is going to be diminished because of our need to be prepared for snow operations. But we are going to continue. They're doing that analysis, and we'll talk about that Tuesday night with the select board. So then, actually, Steve,
I have a comment, and I was hoping to, if it's possible,
ahead, Phil.
take control of the screen for a minute.
Can I just jump in right before Philip?
Yeah, go ahead, Jane.
With an apology to all. Speaking of transportation, Wally and I have to leave to put our oldest on a plane to Scotland. So I will look forward to the minutes. I'll look forward to catching up before the next select board meeting. And I look forward to many other transportation committee meetings.
Thanks,
I
Jane.
apologize too.
Yeah, safe travels, guys. Bon voyage to your daughter. All right. Is it related? So, Phil, is it related to this issue that we're talking about?
Yes, directly.
Okay.
So is it possible for me to take the screen for just a second? I just have some photographs that.
Yeah, you should be able to. You should be able to share your screen. All right, we can see it.
Can you see a Google map on the screen?
Yep.
Okay. Hang on. Okay, so this Google map, this is a Street View map, depicts Ornac heading south at 7 Star. So this is, basically the motorist view from just before you make the turn to 7 Star. And you can't, as a motorist, you can't see the signage that says that this is basically a dead end. Okay, so one of the things that I am hopeful that can be reviewed is kind of like quick and dirty solutions, some of which might simply be signage saying that, for example, 7 Star has no exit, and warning a driver coming south on Ornac that that's true. Okay, you really can't see the sign. So just bear with me for 1 second. I'm gonna try to do this again. And then the next. Okay, so here's 7 Star again. There's your catch basin. Can you see the cursor? Not sure if you can see that. And
Phil, you
then-
have to wait. Phil, you have to stop sharing, and then you have to hit reshare again and click on the other one.
Okay.
It doesn't switch back. So unshare.
Okay.
Hit stop sharing and then go back and pick the new image.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
That's why Kate is here to Zoom, be the Zoom boss. Well done.
Only because I've done it myself 1,000 times.
Okay, all right, so just bear with me. All right, hopefully I'm making these points relatively quickly. Can you see this?
Perfection. Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yep, you got it.
So this is a 7-star. Again, it's a street view. This would be approximately the motorist's view coming down towards the end of 7-star as it intersects with Sudbury Road. Can you guys see my cursor? I'm not sure if you can see the cursor, or you're just seeing the screen.
We can. I can.
Okay, so the sign that says no exit is
It's buried
is
there.
there. So, you know, the quick and dirty fix would be to put it like here. You know, it's not that big of a deal. I don't know. I'm imagining that the right of way is probably a little bit wider than the pavement. So you could legally put the sign here without the permission from the private property owner, but I don't know that for sure. But having been up and down 7-star, the sign is not only blocked by the brush, but it's blocked by the utility pole. So you'd need to have another place for it in order for a motorist who missed it the first time around to see that there's a no exit at that point, okay? Or some other device or signal which lets them know that there's no exit from that street onto Sudbury Road. You know, maybe pavement marking or something. So I guess the question that I have for Steve Dukrin and the engineering team is it's twofold. The first is, are there additional traffic calming measures that might be taken further south on Sudbury Road? So instead of 200 feet out, say 400 feet out, that would warn a trucker or, you know, a motorist who's not familiar with the neighborhood that there are school children. So that's question number one. And then question number two is there a way to temporarily change the speed limit from 40 to a lower number like 30 or 25, given the fact that we know that there are school children in that area and that it's a kind of a main bike riding and walking route from Garfield Road to the school.
So before you jump in, I would say on the speed limit thing, that's part of what we're looking at now.
Okay, great, thanks. And do I have to like cancel my share somehow, or?
I took care of it for you. I used my host
Thank you.
authorities. On the traffic calming, Steve.
Yeah, so traffic calming measures are typically used in urban areas where you have a lot of pedestrians, you have a lot of conflict in movements, pedestrian, bicycles, motor vehicles, this and the other, as well as on routes that are lowly traveled, less traveled. Sudbury Road is an arterial road. So typical traffic calming measures, like, you know, talked about bumpers before, but what I looked at before, what I discussed before was truly not a bump out into the street, but just a rounding of the corner. But you won't put that into the street because now we have high-speed vehicles, a lot of them, narrow street and all of that. So you mentioned signs. Signs are usually not used for traffic calming. They are for alerting motorists, you know, either warning them or informing them. Yeah, there are a variety of signs that you can put along any roadway, just to inform people of what they're up against, what they will be encountering. I've seen where people have put up signs saying that, you know, there are a lot of kids present. This is a neighborhood. If we want to do something like that, we take that up and we'll examine what's most appropriate and what will be effective. You know, a lot of people are against sign pollution. You can put a lot of signs and people become, immune to these signs. So we don't want to get there. We want to use signs that are appropriate and effective.
Yeah, I think that's to build on Steve's point. One of the things is, as a new person to the community, I do know that there aren't a lot of traffic signs, and in my experience, signs don't fix a whole heck of a lot when it comes to traffic, because the people that are causing the problems don't pay attention to signs or much else when they're driving anyway. So, but I do think that there is, sometimes there could be concerns with the impact of too much signage on the aesthetic of the community. So that, because I think the first question I would ask somewhat rhetorically is, why aren't there signs there now? This has been a problem since, automobiles have been on the road for 100 years. This road alignment has been that way the entire time. Why aren't there signs now? And I don't know the answer to that, but there probably is a reason. So I think and I'm not saying that as a reason to not install signage. I'm just kind of noting that probably is a factor in why things are the way they are today. It is if it was easy, it would have already been done. It's kind of an aphorism that, we use from time to time here in our work, and I'm sure it applies to everybody's work. So I just want to kind of throw that out as kind of an alternate side of the coin. Any other questions? We're at an hour now, and I'd like to move on to the agenda item.
I got two really quick ones. One, and you guys can think about it and get back to us, but Lieutenant Moynihan, is it possible to have a police officer stationed there just occasionally, as much as anything? On any of those roads, the cement trucks might see you and realize that, hey, maybe we need to cut back the speed a bit. And then, is there any? I know that the other schools have 3 crossing guards. Is there any chance to get someone there? We need someone there for about 20 minutes a day in the morning and 20 minutes a day in the afternoon.
We've talked about the crossing guards, Bill, and we're just not there. I understand the request, but that's as a part of our analysis. It's people can cross wherever they want, but we have a responsibility to evaluate if it's safe to do so, and putting a crossing guard there brings harm to the crossing guard as well. So in terms of enforcement, I'll turn it over to Kevin, but I do know that we have done quite a bit of enforcement there and in other areas nearby.
Well, I was actually literally Lieutenant.
As far as enforcement goes, it's one of the main areas we do on the west side of town, specifically before school started. We were out there probably 3 weeks prior to the first day of school just to condition motorists to slow down. And I believe I just pulled up the stats right. I think we have 75 motor vehicle stops between the Well and Plainfield Road, which is usually they sit around 1,000 Sudbury Road in order to stop, prevent people from slowing down. So we do a lot of traffic enforcement in that area, and we will continue to do so. If you want, I can slide them down to it's right in that intersection and get some people to maybe stop coming out of the 7-star lane. The only problem is I know Mr. Ledoux said he jogs between 8 and 8:30. A lot of times our units are committed to, we have 2 people down at the Alcott School every day. We have 2 people up at the Willard School. And so a lot of times at that time, our resources are tied up on getting the majority of people into the schools. So we don't have a lot of times necessarily someone to go down to that area at that time. But we do enforcement all 24 hours a day in those areas in order to condition people to slow down in that area. And we will continue to do so.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay.
All right. Anything else so we can maybe move on to the next agenda item? All right. Well, for the folks who are here from the neighborhood, thank you again for your willingness to have the discussion with us. And like I said, we'll be having a discussion with the board about the temporary measures. And hopefully, you've observed through minimally the brush cutting that if there's something we can do in the short term, we will do it. But it's got to be safe, and we have to feel like we can, not create a new kind of hazard in taking any particular action. So, all right. So now committee goals as the next agenda item. We kind of touched on this at the beginning. Doing the charge. We are an hour into this meeting, so I guess I would ask the remaining committee members your thoughts on continuing discussion on goals, or perhaps maybe having another session, scheduling our next meeting and having a session and having the first agenda item or the primary agenda item being a discussion of committee goals, or do we want to talk through some of them now? Not everybody at once. So how about this? How about just by waving your hand, if you think we should maybe set the next meeting and do it there, just kind of wave your hand or give me the thumbs up. Yes, okay, so Aaron, so for our next agenda, selection of chair and setting of goals. If anyone has another, I'll take suggestions via email, just to me, not to the whole committee. If people have like we talked about, if you look at the committee charge, which is, I think Aaron's creating a web page for the committee as well. You can see it there. If there's a specific plan that people want to start with to take a look at, I think that we should, I'm happy to take suggestions. I also think that at an upcoming meeting, Aaron, I'm looking at your, not Aaron, I'm looking in your direction. I think maybe if people want to learn about how our snow operations are planned, I know that directly relates to a lot of things we talk about in transportation and traffic. So if we wanted to have a presentation by Aaron about snow operations townwide, I was blown away by the sidewalk program we have. That's really kind of an excellent benefit for the townspeople. In Long Meadow, where I came from, the bylaw required residents to clear the sidewalks in front of their house. So everybody was looking for homes that didn't have sidewalks counterintuitively, so they didn't have to maintain them. But I think it's a great privilege for Concordians that the town maintains the sidewalks. So I think that could be a future agenda item as well. Maybe depending on what our next meeting is. Would that be okay?
I can give a presentation. We do a presentation every November at the PWC as well, and we can talk about snow and ice operations.
So why don't we do that after you've presented to the PWC? We don't want to jump ahead of them. So we'll do that sometime in November. All right. So if there's, let me just double check here. I'm in full screen mode. Oh, I'm sorry. I know we have committee comments and liaison reports. I don't, Jane is our liaison, but I know we have Court, I think, is observing us from the school committee. I don't know if Court, you wanted to make a comment. Okay. So then I would open up for public comment. Oh, sorry, Phil, go ahead.
Real quickly, I've sort of become an evangelist for the state Safe Routes to School program. I just wanted to mention to Officer Monahan and to you, Stephen, that I've reached out to each of the school principals, provided them with information about Safe Routes to School. And my hope is that each of the principals and or the school superintendent on a district-wide basis will agree to participate in the program. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but very briefly, it's a good program and it does provide some financial incentives to the town as far as grants to participate.
Sure. I would say thanks, Phil. I actually have done it twice in 2 different communities, so I am familiar with it. I guess I would defer to John Arena as the superintendent's representative here. I think that type of stuff should probably flow through him. But I do, I'll just say this, the concept of having Safe Routes to School is essential. Whether or not that program is, structured in the most efficient and effective way to achieve that, I've experienced some mixed results with that, but I do think it's a good dialogue to have and a good idea to explore anyway. So I appreciate the heads up. So then I'll open up to public comment. Just like normal, just announce yourself, unmute yourself, announce, and name and address. All right, so I don't see anybody. So then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so I don't know, Aaron, you want to call the roll? Actually, I'll call the roll. Kevin Monahan,
Here.
John Arena.
Yep.
Steve Dukran,
Aye.
Meryl Schwartz. Yes, you have to unmute and say yes. Sorry, it's a roll call vote.
Sorry.
Yes. Aaron,
Aye.
Phil,
Yes.
and Stephen Crane. Yes. All right. Thanks everybody. Talk to you soon.